So welcome to today's show, everyone, and we're excited to be introducing you to our guest today, Tanya Ray. Tanya is a mother of two children, an author and life transformation coach. Tanya is also the visionary for her own women's ministry named Fearfully and Wonderfully Made Women Arise, which is a ministry for healing and restoration. She has her own podcast as well, which is called Choosing You with Tanya Ray, where she has interviews about taking women on a journey of healing and restoration, women empowerment, how to find their true identity, value, and full potential. So welcome to the show, Tanya. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
It's awesome to have you here. I'm really excited to have this conversation because I know you and Jonathan have connected before, but this is the first time I think we're going to go deep into your story and your background. But before we do you want to just introduce yourself a little bit, just briefly, where you are, where you're from, what you're up to in the world?
Okay. My name is Tanya Ray. Again, I am a mother of two children. I have two grandchildren. I right now reside in the city of Chicago in like the western suburb area of Chicago. Again, I am an author. I started my own life coaching business last year. I'm also I'm in ministry. I serve in ministry where I've taught several Christian education classes, and that's pretty much it that I can tell right now.
I'm sure there's way more to it than that, but we'll find out.
Definitely, absolutely. So what we want to know, what our listeners would like to know a bit more about you, your background, your story, like how you got to where you are now, and any kind of like pivotal moments, challenges that you've had along the way, either like mentally, physically, emotionally, that have really helped develop you into the person you are now.
Mm-hmm. Right. So pretty much, just as, growing up as a child in the city of Chicago, on the west side of Chicago, growing up, pretty much I'll just, jump right in from high school days. I was a teenager in my sophomore year of high school. And my mom, I ended up going to a maternity school. So I was trying to raise a son, while in high school. Thank God, I had the help of my mother and my grandmother to help out with that. But once I had finished going to maternity school and I tried to go back to the regular high school, they didn't want to move me on to my junior year. So I kind of just got discouraged, and I pretty much just like started hanging out, with people and stuff like that, and got discouraged and ended up dropping out of high school. I ended up getting my high school diploma later on in life, I think I was in my 40s. I ended up doing an online course and got my high school. But just the thing is that, throughout my life, without having that diploma, I experienced so many consequences. I lost, working temporary jobs, and I ended up losing jobs because I didn't have, when they wanted to hire me. I ended up losing jobs because I didn't have a high school diploma and stuff like that. So I was working like little jobs here and there. And, by the age 21, I had two children. So I'm trying to raise two children, on the income that I was having. So like I said, going from job to job, never, getting a steady career. So I think at a point I went into the medical field. I went to school to become a certified medical assistant, and I worked in the medical field for like 16 years. So just, throughout my life, I was one of the women that, I experienced some abuse as a child. And then, just in with my children's father, I experienced being in domestic violence relationships and stuff like that. So, right now, that kind of just lead me to what I'm doing now. I was called into ministry at age, I think I was 21 when I got into start serving in ministry up under the leadership of Bishop Jeff Davis. So I learned a lot about ministry up under him and how to serve in ministry and stuff like that. And that's why I got into teaching classes and stuff like that. And then, one year, God just spoke to me about starting a women's ministry, and just bringing women in and ministering them, just I felt like God was giving me a ministry of healing and restoration, because, understanding that a lot of times when there's brokenness going on in someone's life, it's like healing from the inside out. So I just had a desire to minister to women on that type of level. So here in the city of Chicago, I did several women's conferences that ministered to those needs of the women. So pretty much, and I ministered to them from my own personal experiences that I went through, abuse as a child, and abuse, in relationships and stuff like that. I mean, just pretty much at that time, when I was dealing with all that, I pretty much just didn't know who I was, and I walked around, with low self-esteem, just stepping any and everything in my life until, when I got in, I really started, because I grew up in church, but then at some point I kind of just like not fully went away, but I just started getting in, doing a lot of other things. I never got into drugs or, drinking or anything like that, but I used to just started partying and doing a lot of that stuff that kind of pulled me away for a little while. But then I came back, and when I came back, and that's when I ended up going into the ministry. And I think that's when my life really began to change, because I started seeing my life from a different view, and just beginning to understand who I was. So pretty much that was my life. So, and I would say that, working in the medical field, it was, I'll tell the honest truth. When I started working in the medical field, I had a college diploma before I had a high school diploma. People ask me that all the time. How did you do that? And I tell them, I say, it just happened. I was like, I registered for the school and they let me in. So I had, and I ended up, like I told you, I ended up getting my high school diploma in like age 40. So, and then also in my life, I went through a experience of kidney failure, where I was diagnosed with diabetes in 96. And I dealt with, I had some terrible situations with diabetes, where diabetes almost took my life. So I ended up getting a double transplant in 2013. So yeah, just going through that and a lot of the other things, and now that, like I said, that caused me, to go, just move forward in life with a new, mindset is a very important thing to me, because I realized that my mindset had to change about things, even about, even regarding my health. So in that I decided last year to come away from the medical field, and that's when I started doing life coaching. So right now, what I'm doing is I teach a class at a life transformation housing program for women. I do teaching and mentoring there right now currently.
I love so much how you've gone through all of those very stressful moments, often traumatic, clearly as well. And yet you've come through it the other side, and just being this beautiful person of service. Like, there's nothing more than we love to hear these stories, to obviously be able to connect to somebody like you, Tanya, because it can be hard, right? When you're in that real stressful or traumatic experience, that there is a kind of light at the end of the tunnel, and it's really hard to sometimes see that. So with you mentioned that you got your high school diploma at 40. That just really resonated with me, because I remember my mum going back to school to do her nursing at the age of 40. She'd just come out of a pretty intense relationship with my dad at the time. And it was just her just suddenly owning herself, and it was like it was a big kind of statement, I think, for her in many ways. And it was incredible to obviously witness and to have that as a role model. But I'm curious to know, like, what caused you to persist and keep going for that high school diploma? Because a lot of people would just give up, right? Why did you stay going after it?
Well, I was working, like I said, I kept experience, like I was working on one job and it was a temporary job. They wanted to hire me permanently, and they ended up letting me go because I had said to them on my application that I had my diploma, and I didn't, and I didn't have proof, so that I ended up getting let go for that. So it was just more of losing good. I wanted to make money. I need to make more money. I wanted to make more, I was looking for jobs, trying to make more money because again, I had 2 children I had to take care of. And so it was for me to keep, I kept losing the job or being turned down for jobs because I didn't have. So one day I just say, you know what? And I had earlier, sometime I had tried going to get my GED. It took the test on, and I missed it by a couple of points. And then I just got discouraged.
Yeah.
Then, like I said, constantly steady experiencing that, not getting the job, losing the job. So I was like, you know what, you got to find a way, because now I got 2 children I'm taking care of. I'm trying to work a full-time job. So it was kind of hard. So when I moved to the area where I live at now, I happened to be in a library, and they had this sign that was like, online high school program. I was like, yes, that's it. That's for me. And I signed, I went ahead and signed up for it. So I was able to do the course in, at my own pace. Fantastic. I had like a 1.5 years to finish the course though.
Nice. So I love
love
that.
I ended up getting.
I think it's brilliant. When you have so many signals kind of from God, from the universe, whatever our listeners are believing in at this point is neither here or there, but we get these signals, right? We get these signals, and it's like, okay, how many more times am I going to be let go or have a door shut or until I change, or until I actually take matters into my own hands and actually do something like you did or followed through on, which is incredible. Why do you think you really leaned into kind of a life of service in that medical field? Was the medical field just really a great opportunity and more money at the time for your circumstance, or was it actually something that's always been within you to just show up and serve?
It was something that was, I would say, something that was in me from a child. I was, always, how you have your dream, you say, I'm going to grow up and be this. So I used to always say I wanted to be a nurse. So one day I was telling someone, and they was like, before you go directly into that field, how about start off here and see how you like it? So that what caused me to go, into the medical field. I went to school for being a medical assistant.
Nice.
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. I want to touch on what you mentioned about, you mentioned earlier about changing your mindset. One thing you really realized that was so important for you to do, to obviously start achieving what you wanted to achieve. But what I would love to know is, what does that look like? What did that look like for you? So first of all, what did changing your mindset mean to you? And also, how did you do that? Like, what did you do to change your mindset into something that's more resourceful, so you show up in the way you do now?
Mm-hmm. Well, I pretty much would say God had a lot to do with that. And, just really getting, just going through the different situations in my life, the bad relationships, and, just the in general, all the experiences that I've gone through. And then, the pastor, the church that I had went up under at the time, I kind of grew up with him. So I knew him before he started pastoring, and some of my family was there. We kind of was all going to another church, and then he started pastoring his own church. But just as I, got up under him, submitted up under his leadership, and just as I began to learn, as he taught through the word of God and stuff like that, and I just began to learn, looking at my life, and I'm just like, okay, my life cannot keep going this way. I know I want better for myself. So as, just studying the word of God and, going there and learning and stuff like that, that's when my mindset started to change. I started to see myself different, and I'm like, I begin to tell myself, you deserve better than this. You don't deserve to be treated this way and stuff like that. So, and then I had, I had 2 kids to take care of. So at the time, I have to tell you guys, this is so funny, because it was in the moment that I was out with one of my best, she's my childhood friend. We were out one night at a club, and I was just sitting there, and I knew it was something different about me, because I was the one that used to like to go out and party. But this one night that we were out, and I just began to tell her I wasn't enjoying myself. And I told her, I said, you know what? I said, I don't want to be here. I said, I feel like I'm not supposed to be here. And she was like, why? And I told her, I said, I don't know. I said, I think I'm gonna leave. But she wanted to stay. So I ended up leaving her there. And I left. And from that point, I just never went back. I never went back. My mindset just changed from there. I never went back to the club. And from that very moment, that's when things began to change in my life.
That's so
I just
so
feel like
interesting.
something that was going on inside, that
It's-
caused me to, make that decision to, not look back at that life anymore.
It's so interesting because we've noticed that's a pattern. I mean, I think for sure it was a pattern with us in terms of the things that we used to surround ourselves with just didn't sync up anymore. It just didn't feel right. But also with the clients that we work with, I literally had a client probably about 2 weeks ago. It was pretty much say the exact same thing that you just said. So she's 21, living in Saudi Arabia. She was out with her friends hanging out. There was a musician playing and this kind of thing, and suddenly she was like, I'm not enjoying it as much as I used to be. Like, what's wrong with me? And it's like, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, it's okay. All that's happening is you're growing in different ways. It doesn't mean you're never going to enjoy musicians and hanging out with your friends again. It just means maybe you need to learn to navigate that in a different way, so that you can continue to grow and continue on your own path, because it's not always going to be the same as our friends. So kudos to you for actually, stepping up and following your own path, because that's not always easy to do when we have these external influences, is it?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it was like at that time, even at that moment, because I didn't realize what was taking place at my life then, because I was one that never was interested in reading. I was in church at the time, but I was still doing, going out and stuff like that. But at that moment, I just started having this great interest in reading the Bible, stuff like that. Was something I never desired to do, but all of a sudden that urge to read had started happening to me. And that's why I say when I was there with her, I was like, you know what, I don't feel like I need to be here. I'm supposed to be here. And at that moment, once I made that decision, immediately, that's when I felt like God was leading me into ministry. Immediately right after that. So
Nice.
No, it's just so powerful when we start listening to these little signals the universe is sending us and start to take action on it instead of ignore them. And that's what that feeling is, when something that used to feel good and used to feel right no longer feels right. That's a signal saying, okay, maybe it's time to shift, change it up a bit, like move, move to another level. And that's pretty much what you did. You listened to that signal, you took it on board, and you took action on it, and that's awesome. And I love it, kind of like you bring it back to your whole message of choosing you, because you mentioned earlier about you had your kids to think about there, but one thing that you said was to be able to help your kids there, you had to make those changes yourself. You had to change your mindset. You had to choose you to be able to help your children. And that's so powerful, because so many people lose themselves and thinking, I've got to sacrifice everything for my children and for this. But in actual fact, it's you've done that work on yourself, so you show up for other people, including your children, in a much better, resourceful way. So what I want kind of to know is about this whole message around choosing you. Like, tell us more about why it's so important to embrace who it is that you are.
Because a lot of times we live our lives through the lenses of everybody else, how other, sometimes we can live in the image of somebody that we're not. And, we become people pleasers, doing things just for people to like us, or, just we're burning ourselves out, trying to do things for people. And a lot of times you end up being taken advantage of, or you being mistreated some type of way. And, because I was a person that had like low self-esteem, not knowing who I was until, when I was in the church, I experienced some things inside while I was in the church. So, and that, I began to say, after a lot of experiences that I had, I say, you know what, it's time for me to start choosing me now. It's time for me to start, because I'm like, at this point, when I wrote the book, I'm like, my children are grown. And now I can live the life that I want to live. Now it's time for me to start choosing the life that I want. Choosing, living life on my own terms. Because, especially, growing up as a child, you have to live by somebody else's terms and their rules and stuff like that. I said, now I have a chance to live on my own terms. I get to live like how I want to live and do the things that I want to do. So, a lot of that came from that. Just not, learning about, and that was the whole thing of me really getting to know who I was. Because how can you choose you when you don't really know who you are, But I had to get to know that. And that was like the first chapter in my book. It's called Discovering You, discovering you and discovering your purpose. So I began to discover who I was. And that's how I was able to move forward in life and seeing myself. And the Bible tells us to see ourselves the way God sees us. So when I began doing that, that's why I was able to begin choosing myself. I was like, you know what? I'm no longer, because sometimes we can give too much people. And I was, I'm not doing that anymore. I had to learn the power of no, saying no to people, because it was like you're afraid to say no because you're afraid of being rejected or people are going to dislike you. But I made that mistake of doing all of that, and I remember when I got in ministry, my pastor at the time, he told me, he said, don't try to fit in with everybody else. You're different. He said, you're different. And I didn't grab it then. I kind of grabbed that later on down the line, and that, came back up to me. And I was like, when, I had to experience a couple of things before I really got the concept of what he meant by it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So,
and that's when I began to step out.
How does someone start discovering who they are then in what you teach and what you deliver? Like, if somebody's listening to this episode and they're really resonating with your story, where do they start? If they feel like, they've been on this turbulent path, but they've finally got the capacity to do this inner work, for whatever reason, whether it's courage, whether it's time, whether it's resource, they're finally able to step into this. What would you say to somebody that's just starting to figure this stuff out?
Right. Even with me as a life coach, and when with clients and stuff like that, I take them through a step. And the first thing I do, I take them back to their childhood. Because sometimes that's a point where in your childhood, you deal with trauma and a lot of stuff like that. And we seem to lose ourselves. So it was like for me to go back and deal with some things from my childhood and say, okay, where did you lose yourself at? Who did you want to be back then? And like I tell them, I say, a lot of times we've been conditioned to be somebody that we're not. We haven't had a chance to really seek who we wanted to be. So it took me doing that, looking at my life, looking at like I said, what I dreamed to become and stuff like that. But it was just knowing myself from the inside out, just seeing myself, seeing my values, seeing my work. That's when I talk about discovering who you are, that's what I mean. I had to get to understand that.
I think those concepts are so overlooked in personal development right now. There's a lot obviously out in terms of in the industry, in personal development, in terms of self-improvement, healing, transformation. There's a lot of talk about being positive and that this is how we're supposed to be well, and this is the only way, but there's not enough people talking, and this is obviously my opinion, about the deeper rooted things like beliefs, like our values, so that we know who we are and what we stand for. Because like you said, if we don't, we're always going to live on somebody else's authority. For me, I realized I was about 25, I think 25, 26, give or take a few years. I'm losing my timeline here. And I realized, I was like, well, how did I get here? I just questioned, because I got to a point emotionally, I was completely just depleted. I was down and out basically. And I got to this point where I was like, how did I even get here? And that was kind of my wake-up call as to what life am I living? Why am I living like this? It wasn't a horrible life necessarily, because all been through and thought I'd moved on from all the traumatic, turbulent times growing up and these kinds of things. But the reality was I'd fallen into my career. I'd fallen into opportunities. And like I said, they weren't all bad, but they weren't on my terms. They weren't me calling the shots. And it took a long while, I think, like you've said, to really figure out, well, who am I then? Without all of this, Who am I?
Right.
And I think beliefs and values and our condition, what we've absorbed from everybody else, is a very, very, very powerful place to start. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to somebody who's listening, who is a little bit cautious about doing this work? Maybe they're a bit nervous or a bit fearful about what it is they might find when they go to look at what they value. Because one of the things I've noticed is that sometimes people, they genuinely don't think they value anything, or their beliefs that they hold are just like, they're not worthy to even have them, like they don't mean anything. So what would you say to somebody that's in that headspace?
Well, I first like to say that a lot of times when that happens, it is because of experience. You know, people have experienced things that they, you know, they just don't want to look back at. And those are things, sometimes it's things that they haven't healed from. Because when you start looking back at, you know, maybe you have to go back from to your childhood, but those is some things about your life that you have to go back to address in order to really see, you know, who you are. And but it's, and like I said, you got to know that it may strike some pain in you, but it's better for you to address it, because if you don't address what's hurting you, it's going to continue to rule over you. You know, it's that if you don't deal with your pain is going to deal with you. So it's best to go back and address those issues in order to, you know, to heal from it and be able to move on with life. Because if you don't, you'll find yourself and continue being stuck in life, not really knowing who you are, how you're supposed to be treated. Because that was one of the things that happened to me, that, you know, because I was in places and, you know, just growing up in school where I was one of the kids that was being talked about and stuff like that, you know, people and tried to embarrass me and stuff like that. So I couldn't see who I was. All I can see was what was said to me. So, because, you know, they said sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt. Words do hurt.
Yeah.
They do hurt, and they do stick with us. So a lot of that was me growing up, you know, just hearing those things, and that would cause me to stop seeing myself for who I was. You know, all I could see was what was said about me. So a lot of that takes place too. Then we have to, you know, learn how to start removing those thoughts and begin seeing yourself for who you really are. But like I said, most times it's going to take you going back and addressing some things and realizing where. I had a client that I told her, I said, you know what, where did that, you know, she was saying some things about not knowing who she was. And I said, well, because she was dealing with some issues. And I said, well, what made you feel that way about yourself? And she said, because of people used to talk about me. And she became like, was ashamed of herself. And I say, well, I say, now it's time for you to see yourself differently. You know what I'm saying? People call you ugly or whatever, you know, but you have to know that you're beautiful. You know, I began telling her that and trying to build her. It's about building your self-confidence up. You know, knowing what you're worth, knowing what you value, though it's going to take you going back and understanding that. You're not, because we have to realize that we are not what happened to us. That's not who we are. You know, our past doesn't define who we are. So that's why we have to go back and address some issues that happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Well, one thing we've noticed with a lot of individuals is when they focus on their personal growth, they really it starts to create this ripple effect in the world where they want to actually contribute more, basically like what you're doing now, like your service and your giving back from what you've experienced in your life. So what I want to ask you is, what impact do you think that it will have on the world when people start to rise up and start to choose themselves and find out who they actually are?
I feel like once you rise up and really begin choosing you and figuring out who you are, I think that's when you can really start living your best life, you know, because in my experience, I felt like it was the best thing that could ever happen. You know, I don't feel weighed down no more. You know, just I say you have to learn your they say your strengths and your weaknesses, right? And once you learn those and you begin to operate in them, but the areas that you weak in, you start building on those areas to build yourself up. Because a lot of people don't know how to choose themselves, because they've lived so long letting others choose for them. They don't know how to do that. But it's like, you got to start asking yourself, what do I want out of life? What do I want to do? What are the things that make me feel happy and alive? That's what choosing you is about. Getting to know those things. Because what makes you happy is a part of who you are, and I think I said before, Jonathan, when we talked, I said our happiness shouldn't be contingent on somebody else's. It shouldn't be based on somebody else coming along and making us happy. But I feel like once you can begin choosing you, seeing what you want out, envision the life that you want and start going out of it, you will begin to start feeling more alive within yourself.
And that becomes contagious as well, doesn't it? Like I'd put money on it, not really a gambling person, but I'd put money on it that when you started to feel more alive and just doing what you're doing and choosing you, essentially, did you start to magnetize more like-minded people in your direction? Obviously people that for you to serve, but did you also start to attract more like-minded people?
Not, I would say not right away, because that's another area that I had to really look at, because sometimes we need to look at the people that's in our circle, the people around us, what I'm saying? Because sometimes there are some people in our life that's keeping us down, from really being who we really, because you have people that don't want to see you do better. They want to keep seeing you living a low life. They don't want to see you to come up higher and succeed in life and stuff like that. I had to begin looking at a lot of that. I had to begin looking at friends and stuff like that. I read a book sometime early last year, about relational intelligence, and just how, about how we categorize the people in our life. And it caused me to really start looking at the people. And I had got an understanding that what you spend time with is what you become. So if you're spending your time around negative people, then guess what? That's what you're going to become. If they're carrying negative mindsets and you continue to be around them, it's going to transform onto you, and you'll be walking around that same way. So I had to take a look at a lot of that. And, some people walked away, and some people I just had to cut off myself in order for my life to move in the direction that I wanted it to go.
How did you do that? Because it sounds perfect on paper. I know you obviously went through a big learning process and obviously dealt with some of your own personal circumstances around this, but there'll be people that are listening to this that could totally resonate. They know that they're in a negative environment. They know that things need to change. They know they need to start saying no. They know they need to start choosing themselves and their environment, but they struggle to make that move and to make that decision. So what do you say to something like that?
It's definitely a sacrifice, but you got to know that that's what you want for yourself. And then because a lot of times we won't make the choice because we're worried about how people are going to feel, or we're going to worry about hurting others' feelings. But you know that this is the best choice that you need to make for yourself, that to remove these people out of your life. If you desire to move forward in life and do something different, it's a sacrifice that's got to be made. And whether it's hurting, so I mean, you're not intentionally want to hurt someone's feeling, but to that point, if you want better, you have to make that choice to do it.
Yeah.
And and understand that some people may understand that each individually, our lives may be going in two separate different directions. Some people will understand it and some people won't, but those that don't understand it, you have to keep moving on. They may never get it, but you can't waste your time trying to keep, getting them to understand why and holding on to them, to get them to understand it. You just got to move on.
Yeah, life is fluid, and sometimes we try and hold on often too long and too much, and that creates even more internal struggle, and it reinforces old stories, and then we kind of get stuck there. So I always find if we focus less on the lack and what we're going to lose and focus on more what we're going to gain, and also what they're going to gain, because you're going to be no good to somebody in a friendship or relationship if you feel like you're holding back and closing off. Right. Even for the other person, I think there's a lot to benefit them when we're just honest and we accept that our lives are going in different directions. I know Jonathan and I have obviously been through this on our journeys as well, in terms of, changing our social circles, family members being on board with certain things and not, and the way that we think about things, and how much time you then spend in different scenarios and this kind of thing. And it's had its challenges, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's one of the biggest thing that I learned, which is you have no control over how people think, feel, or act. You only have control over how you think, feel, and act. So you've got to place that focus on you. Otherwise, if you keep worrying about what other people think about you, or worry about if you've offended anyone or if you've annoyed anyone, you're going to live a life of constant worry and suffering. It's like, you could say the right thing and you'll annoy someone. You could say the wrong thing and you'll annoy someone. So either way, it's not about you, it's about them. And that's, I think, the more people can understand that it's how people react to you is not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of them. And it's important for you to focus on you. And as long as what you're doing is serving your values, your needs, and serving obviously the greater good as well, what more can you do?
Right. I understand that, when we allow people to control our emotions, and we allow, we be so worried about how they feel, I understand that that's when we give them power over us. When we're afraid to make that decision because of how they're going to feel, and like you said, to say to your audience, you have to begin taking that power back. You have to rise above that, and let people feel how they're going to feel when it comes to your life, because you can't sacrifice the things that you want out of your life because of somebody's feelings. You just can't do that. You have to make that step, and but understand that a lot of time when we talk about people, understanding people, it's not about you may not need to completely remove them out of their life, but you may need to put them in a different category where you're not spending so much time with them. You get what I'm saying? So that's a decision to have to make, where you have to really take a look and see, well, who do I need to keep close and who do I need to kind of put back on the back burner? Because and one thing I understand when it comes to friends, and it may not just be friends, it may be family too, that the people in our lives are supposed to add to us and not take, they said to be an asset to us and not be a liability, so they should be adding. If you got people in your life that's adding to you, that's encouraging you and pushing you to do all that you want to do or be in your life, those are the ones you need to hold on to. But when you get those that constantly pulling you down, draining you, they just only want to take from you and you never can get nothing back. They always just want you to keep pouring and encouraging them. Those are the ones you need to watch out for. You kind of may need to put them on the back burner.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for highlighting that, because it's not just about cutting people off, right? Because we can be so extreme, I think, aren't we, as human beings, and especially when there's external pressures we've got to be all in or all out. It's like, no, there can be some middle ground. So I love that you highlighted that. It's perfect. So Tanya, this is a question that we tend to ask most of our guests that come on the show, so we're curious to know your answer to this question, which is, in the last, say, 5 years or so, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Within the last 5 years, from my experience, like I said, it's been the whole mindset things. Even during the whole pandemic, I had a lot of growth just within my mind, where I just began to think different about a lot of things. So, and it caused me to feel more positive about life. When I begin to see things from a different perspective, and I've learned even more about myself during those times. So I have to say it was my mindset, Then, I tell people about when you're renewing your mind, renewing your thoughts. I said, it's not a one-day process. That's something that can happen throughout life. So it was definitely the mindset thing for me.
Absolutely. I saw a meme recently, and it was Usain Bolt, and he said it took him 4 years to figure out how to run in 9 seconds in his races and like smash it in 9 seconds. He said, and people give up after like 2 months thinking that they don't get any results. Obviously that was in the fit, like in the physical side of fitness that he was referring to, but it's true what you're saying. So many people are looking for these quick fixes, this overnight stuff, these quick affirmations, and then we're done, right? No, that's not how it works, right? It's taken us how many years to get here? It's going to take some time. Let's have some patience with ourselves and be kind along the way, right?
There's only certain things can happen in a matter of a moment, but some things it's a process.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, absolutely. And sometimes, obviously, that process might start well. It might be a bit bumpy along the way. You might find out what worked last month didn't happen to work this month, but might work again next month. And the key is it's just to keep consistent with it. Obviously, keep persistent, consistent, and just dedicated to what you're doing, and play the long game. It's lasting change, not quick fixes that we're after. And that's the thing. There's that lifelong change that we want when it comes to our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health.
I think you're right, Tanya, though. It's like it's an everlasting journey, really, because we're always learning about ourselves, always. If we go a whole day and we don't learn a single thing about ourselves, then we're not paying attention as far as I'm concerned, right? So we need to lean into that process. And yeah, like you said, like change can happen in a moment. It can change like you can create transformation in a decision that you make, and then from the actions that you take. But it's the consistency of those actions that really start to, I think, contribute to the proof that we sometimes need about who we are. Because like you were talking about earlier, is we go for a long period of our life maybe living on somebody else's terms, not knowing who we are, that sometimes we need some proof, we need some evidence to show, no, I am this person that I'm choosing, this is me, there's the proof. And then we see it every single day.
And you still have people that are adult, are still living, trying to be the person that their parents wanted them to be. No, you have to step up at a point and say, you know what, no, I'm going to go out and find out who I am, And I will say for me, even when I was serving in ministry, I stayed a part of that ministry for like 20 something years, but that I felt like there was more to me, than where I was. So I stepped away from that ministry to really go and find myself. And when I did that, I found out that, I began to find out the things, more things that was inside of me, about me. And, and I began to, and the thing is, a lot of times when you don't know who you are spiritually, you have to begin praying and asking God, show me me, show me who I am and stuff like that. And it's like when he began to show you that, and he show you the area that you may need to work on it. You know what I'm saying? He's not showing you yourself to hurt you, but he's showing you because those areas that he's going to show you your strength and your weaknesses, right? He's going to show you where, there's a lot of things that he will show you about yourself once you ask him and be truthfully about it. You have to be ready for what he's going to show you.
Yeah, be careful what you wish
definitely
for.
have to be ready for what he's going to show you. He will, and that's what happened for me. It's been continued even to this day. It's still been happening for me, and I just began. Whatever he showed me, I began building myself up in that area, and I found out that helps build more self-confidence in me when I can work on the areas that I'm weak in. Yeah, and it may be an area that you can be very passive in, like I said, afraid to say no, and God to show that no, you're giving too much of yourself away when you're afraid to tell people no. That's when you open up the door to be taken advantage of, But he's going to show you those areas, so you have to be ready.
And in your experience on your personal journey, and you're being shown these maybe obviously in circumstance, however it is you're being shown, does it get louder if you ignore it?
Pretty much, yes. Yeah. It does. It does, because like I said, when you ask, it's gonna happen. It's gonna be reminders here and there, you know what I'm saying? And what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You're going to continue to try to ignore it. But I mean, it's for you to pay attention to it. Those areas that he wants you to pay attention to and begin to work on. You know, you may not be able to work on them all at once, but at least begin to work on
At least
to
keep
build yourself up, you know.
Yeah, I own it, right? Even like you said,
Mhm.
even if you can't work on it right now, or you can't work on everything at once, just own where you are. Be responsible for that. Be like,
Be
okay,
responsible.
I get it. I see it. I'm aware.
Yeah.
I hear you. And then you get to carry on along the way and figure it
Yeah.
out, right?
So be self-accepting. You have to accept the good and the bad about yourself, you know, and make change.
Absolutely, definitely. So, Tanya, is there anything else you would love to add to this conversation you think our readers, or our listeners, sorry, not readers, but our listeners really need to hear? So any like final passing words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom, you know, like I said, it's more of getting to know yourself, you know, begin to make the decision to start choosing you, follow the path that's right for you, so that you can live it, so that you can become a better version of yourself and begin to live a better life for yourself, you know, because you can't keep living your life for everybody else. You can't do that, because you end up wearing yourself out and not being your true self. So, you know, that's why I say, you know, really begin to know what choosing you mean to you, because the way I had to choose myself may not be the way that, you know, somebody else needs to choose themselves. So you got to really figure out what choosing you mean for you, you know. And me choosing you may mean, you know, you might be in a bad toxic relationship. Choosing you may mean making the decision to walk away, you know, and saying, you know what, I deserve better. You know, I'm gonna come out of this toxic relationship, and I'm not gonna look back, because I deserve better. You know, it can just mean a matter of that. You know, just allowing people to walk over you. I you know, in the book I talk about breaking the negative cycles, you know, where you constantly keep doing the same old thing and you keep getting negative results. You have to begin to start breaking those cycles. That means start doing something different, you know, making a wise choice. So pretty much that's a whole part of choosing you.
Perfect, absolutely perfect. I think obviously we'll put the notes in with the links to where people can come and find your book for sure. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show today, because I don't think enough people are talking about identity and what that really means, how it's really at the core of everything. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing in the world, and for being such a beautiful person of service, and for using your own journey to not only inspire people, but to genuinely care as well and help people heal and restore. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
So
You all.
where can people find you? So anyone listening that want to check out who you are, check out where they can find your book, where's the best place to contact you?
They can contact my website is ariselec.com, and then my book is on Amazon. They can find my, you know, this is my book.
Cool.
They can find it right now. It's selling on Amazon. Yeah, but you know, I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. Also, you know, I'm on, my name on Instagram is Tanya choosing me, choosing me again.
Yeah.
On Instagram, but I'm also on LinkedIn. So
Cool.
You're everywhere.
Everywhere.
Awesome.
I'm just not on Twitter yet.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Me neither. Awesome. Just quickly, for anyone who's maybe listening to this but not watching the video, what's the name of your book that you just held up there?
My book is called Arise, Get Up, and Start Choosing You Again.
Perfect.
So it gives practical. It will give you practical steps to help you start choosing you again.
Awesome. So all the links will be up on the show notes, guys. So anyone listening, so it's easy to find. You could go find Tanya, find her book, buy it, read it, and I'm sure you'll love it. So just want to say one more time, thank you for joining us. It's been such a pleasure talking to you, and thank you for sharing your story with us all today.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Yeah, it was a pleasure.